Hello everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on this Monday night here in Boston. We are coming together, students and faculty in CC 101, to read Professor Stephen Esposito's translation of Sophocles' Ajax. We thought this would be a nice idea, a nice way of coming together as a community, but also helping you with the reading for the week. This way, you know, get all of your reading taken care of and get to hear the play out loud. We invite you to put questions, comments in the chat box, especially, Steve, if I can put you on the spotlight for a little bit. We have our translator here performing with us, so you can feel free to ask him, you know, why he chose to translate a certain thing a certain way. Of course, he knows the Greek inside out, so feel free to ask him all of your questions, or any of us too. So thank you very much. We'll just dive in, and I hope you enjoy the show. So we're starting with the prologue, page 2. Enter Odysseus, followed by Athena at some distance via a side ramp. The goddess stands on the edge of the stage. Odysseus circles around the hut, cautiously peering inside, searching for Ajax.
Always, son of Laertes, my keen eyes watch you on the prowl, stalking your enemies, eager to put them to the test. So now I see you at the seaward huts by Ajax ships, where he holds his station at the far off end of the fleet. At this time you hound him, taking the measure of his tracks, footprints freshly stamped in the stand, to see if he is inside or out. Some keen-nosed coursing, like the sniffing of a Spartan bitch, guides your steps straight to their goal. For indeed, just now the man happens to be inside, sweat streaming from his head and blood from his sword-slaying hands. So there is no longer any need to peer inside this gate, but explain exactly why you've set yourself this eager quest, since you could learn from one who knows where he is.
O voice of Athena, dearest of the gods to me, how easy it is to recognize that sound, invisible though you are. Yes, I grasp your words clearly, like blasts from a bronze-mouthed Etruscan trumpet. You've judged correctly. It is indeed against an adversary that I set my course and circle round. Ajax, the shield bearer. Yes, that's the man, no other, I've been tracking for some time. For just last night, he did a deed against us hard to conceive and hard to explain, if in fact he has done it. Since we know nothing for sure, but wander in doubt, that's why I have volunteered, yoked myself to this task. Destroyed, that's how we found our booty just now, all the cattle slain, butchered by a human hand. And the herdsmen as well, guardians of the flocks. So every single soldier lays the blame for this on that man. Some eyewitness who saw him bounding across the plain all alone, carrying a blood-stained sword, told me and revealed the details. At once I rushed to track him down. Sometimes I follow the signs. Sometimes I'm thrown off course, unable to learn where he is. So you've arrived in the nick of time, for in all things past and yet to come, it is your hand that steers me.
I knew that, Odysseus, and that's why I took my post on this path some time ago, a guardian zealous for this hunt of yours.
Really, dear mistress, do I toil to any purpose?
Yes, know that these deeds are his, as you suspected.
But why did he thrust his hand out in a way so hard to understand?
Anger weighed heavy on him over the decision about Achilles' arms.
Why then does he fall so furiously upon the flocks?
He thought he was staining his hand with slaughter of you all.
What? Do you mean his plot was actually aimed against the Greeks?
He would have succeeded too if I hadn't been so careful.
Such reckless, daring schemes. How could he be so bold?
Yes, his assault came at night, by stealth, all alone.
Did he really come close to us? Did he reach his goal?
There he was, actually, at the gates of the two generals.
And how did he come to hold back his hand, eager for slaughter?
It was I who threw hard-to-bear imaginings over his eyes and kept him from the incurable joy, diverting him to the flocks of sheep and the mingled oxen, spoils still undivided and guarded by herdsmen. There he attacked the many-horned beasts, mowing them down in a circle, splitting their spines in the slaughter. He thought at one moment that he was slaying Atreus' two sons, holding them in his very own hands. At another moment, he fancied he was attacking now this commander, now that. As he roamed to and fro in his fevered and frenzied fits of madness, I urged the man on, driving him into the hunting nets of doom. Then, when he took a respite from this slaughter, having roped and bound the still surviving oxen, along with all the sheep, he drove them to his dwelling as if he had men as his prey, not high-horned heifers. And now he's in his hut, torturing the tied-together beasts. Here, to you as well, I'll show his sheer lunacy in full view, so you can report what you've seen to all the Greeks.
Odysseus retreats from the door.
Take courage. Wait for him. Don't expect disaster. I shall turn away the beams of his eyes and keep him from seeing your face.
Athena turns towards Ajax's hut and raises her voice.
Hey, you there, the one bending back your prisoner's arms and roping them tight. I'm calling you. Come on out. Ho, Ajax, come out in front of your hut.
What are you doing, Athena? Don't keep calling him out.
Shh. Keep quiet and don't win a reputation for cowardice.
By the gods, don't call him out. Let him be content to stay within.
For fear of what? Is he now for the first time a man?
An enemy of this man, to be sure, and even more so now.
Well, isn't the sweetest pleasure to laugh in the face of one's foes?
I'm quite content if he stays in his hut.
Do you shrink from seeing a madman in full view?
Yes, though if he had been sane, I wouldn't have shrunk in fear.
But not even now will he see you, though you're present and near.
How can that be, if indeed he still sees with the same eyes?
I will darken his eyes, even though they are keen-sighted.
Well, after all, anything can happen if a god contrives it.
Shh. Stand right there. Stay where you are at this very moment.
I'll stay then. Would that I were far away from this peril.
Odysseus withdraws sheepishly to the end of the stage, magically invisible to Ajax.
Ho there, Ajax! A second time I summon you. Why do you have so little respect for your ally in arms?
Enter Ajax from his hut, covered in blood and carrying a huge blood-stained whip. He stands at the doorway, wildly exultant.
Hail to you, Athena. All hail, Zeus-born child. How well you've stood beside me. Yes, I shall crown you with spoils of splendid gold in gratitude for this hunting.
You have spoken nobly, but tell me this other thing. Did you dip your dagger deep in the Argive army's blood?
I could boast that, and I don't deny that I dipped it deep.
Did you really launch an armed attack against Atreus' sons?
So that never again will those two strip Ajax of honor.
The men are dead, as I understand from your account?
Dead indeed. Now let them take away the weapons that belong to me.
Well, and what of Laertes' son? In what plight have you placed him? Or has he eluded you?
That damned fox. Did you ask me where he is?
I did indeed. I mean Odysseus, the one who stood in your way.
My sweetest pleasure, lady, is the prisoner who sits inside. I don't want him to die just yet.
Until you've done what or gained what further profit?
Until he's been bound to a pillar beneath my courtyard roof.
What evil will you work then on the poor wretch?
And first had his back beaten blood red with the whip. Then he can die.
No, don't torture the poor wretch so cruelly.
In all else, Athena, I charge you to have your pleasure, but this, and no other, is the just penalty that he shall pay.
Very well then, since doing such is your pleasure, vent your violence. Spare none of the things your plan.
I'm off to work, but I charge you this. to stand by my side always as just the kind of ally in arms you have been today.
Ajax exit through the large central double door back into his hut.
Do you see, Odysseus, the strength of the gods, how great it is? Whom could you have found with greater forethought than this man, or more accomplished in timely action?
I know no one, but nevertheless I pity the poor wretch, even though he is my enemy, because he has been yoked harshly to the harness of a dreadful delusion. Yes, I ponder that man's lot no less than my own, for I see that we are nothing more than ghosts, all that we live, or vacuous insubstantial shadows.
So then, looking upon such sights as this, don't you ever speak a scornful word against the gods or take upon yourself any self-important swagger if you happen to surpass someone in might or in the depth of your profuse prosperity. No, since a single day can sink the scales on all human fortunes and raise them up again. It is moderate and sound-minded men whom the gods love, while they hate the wicked.
Exit Odysseus and Athena by opposite side ramps. Enter then the chorus of 15 sailors into the orchestra from one side ramp.
Son of Telamon, lord of wave-washed Salamis, firm pillar on the sea, when you prosper, I rejoice in your joy. But whenever a stroke from Zeus or a furious word from the Greeks assaults you slanderously, mighty fear shrinks me and I shudder like the eye of a fluttering dove. So even now, during the night just spent, mighty uproar assails us, threatening infamy, clamorings that you assaulted the meadow where horses run with mad delight and butchered the beasts, the Greek booty, spoil still undivided, captive of the spear, slaughtering them with your swords flashing iron. Such are the whispering words Odysseus insinuates into everyone's ears, impetuously persuading them. Yes, he presently asserts persuasive allegations against you, and everyone who hears them rejoices more than he who spoke, insolently mocking your sorrows. For whoever shoots his arrows at mighty-souled men could not miss his mark. But if someone leveled such charges against me, he could not persuade. It is against the man who has wealth that envy and spite creep, and yet lowly men without the mighty constitute a feeble tower of defense. For just as the lowly man could best be kept upright when allied with the mighty, so could the mighty when served by lesser men. But before the event, it is impossible to teach fools sensible maxims concerning these matters. Such are the men whose uproar is raised against you, and we have not the strength to defend ourselves against such charges without your aid, King. But the truth is that when they have escaped from your eye, they cackle and flap like flocks of fluttering birds, and before the mighty eagle they would soon shrink in terror if you should suddenly show yourself. Yes, in silence they would cower, speechless. Oh, mighty rumor. Oh.
The chorus sings.
Oh, mighty rumor, mother of my shame, was it then Artemis Tauropolos, bull-tending daughter of Zeus, who launched you against all the army's herds of cattle in order to pay back, perhaps, some victory that bestowed her no fruits, either cheated of her splendid war spoils or angered because of a deer hunt that bestowed her no gifts? Or did Eunyalus, lord of the bronze breastplate, blame you for not acknowledging his alliance in battle, and by scheming against you in the night, avenge the insult? Never certainly was it by the prompting of your mind alone, son of Telamon, that you went so far astray as to fall upon the flocks. No, it might be a sickness sent by the gods. May both Zeus and Phoebus Apollo ward off the ignoble rumor of the Greeks. If those two mighty magistrates spew out scurrilous lies and craft cunning stories, and the king of the profligate stock of Sisyphus' sons does the same, do not, my lord, do not any longer keep your eyes thus hidden in your hut by the sea, nor take upon yourself this ignoble rumor. Come now, rise up from the seat where you have been firmly fixed for too long in this leisurely contest of inactivity, igniting a fiery disaster that blazes up to heaven. The insolent mockery of your enemies in your absence races fearlessly through the windswept ravines. All their taunting tongues mock you, bringing heavy pain. So I stand stuck in the depths of sorrow.
Act 1. Enter TECMESSA from Ajax's hut.
Defenders of the ships of Ajax, descendants of the race of Rectius' earthborn sons, lamentations have come over us, we who care for Telamon's house so far away. The dreaded, mighty, raw-powered Ajax now lies low, stricken sick by a turbulent storm that has muddled his mind.
What heavy woe has this past night received in exchange for the already grave affliction of the bygone day? Speak to us, daughter of Teleucus from Phrygia, since impetuous Ajax is constant in his affection for you, the bedmate captured by his spear. Certainly you know and could suggest some explanation.
How then should I tell a tale too terrifying to be told? For you will learn of a suffering equal to death. It was madness that seized him, our famed nighttime Ajax, so that he has fallen into disgrace. Such a sight you could see inside the hut, slaughtered victims slain by hand, that man's sacrificial offerings dipped in blood.
What report about the fiery, hot-tempered warrior have you disclosed? One not to be endured, yet not to be escaped. It's a tale told by the mighty men of the Greeks, which the mighty power of their storytelling magnifies. Oi, moi, I fear what is approaching. In full view, the man will die because he has slaughtered willy-nilly with his frenzy-stricken hands and dark sword, the grazing beasts and their horse-mounted herdsmen.
Oi, moi. So it was from there, from those pastures, that he came to us leading the fettered flock. Some of these prisoners he butchered on the ground in his hut. Others he struck in the sides and ripped apart. And lifting up 2 white-footed rams, he hacked off one's head, then the tip of its tongue and hurled it down. The other he bound upright to a pillar. Then he grabbed a mighty strap from a horse's harness and flogged the ram with a whistling double-wrapped whip, abusing the beast with bitter insults, which some god, not a mortal, taught him.
It is time in truth for each one of us now, having cloaked his head in a hood, to steal away on foot or yoke himself to the rower's swift seat and let the seafaring ship sail on her way. Such threats do the joint commanders, Atreus' powerful sons, launch against us. I am petrified to share the pain of a violent death by stoning, smitten alongside this man whom a monstrous doom holds fast in its grips.
No longer is it so, for his fury subsides like a southern gale after a sharp outburst when its bright lightning ceases. And now, though sane again, he has fresh grief. For to observe one's self-inflicted sufferings when nobody else has assisted in the deed intensifies the mighty pangs of agony.
Well, if he has stopped his raging, I reckon he's very fortunate. For now that the trouble has vanished, there will be less talk.
And if someone were to allot you a choice, would you prefer to distress your friends while feeling pleasure yourself, or to be a partner among partners, sharing your grief with theirs?
Certainly, lady, the trouble that's double is greater.
Then it is now, when he is no longer sick, that we are in deep trouble.
What did you mean by this? I don't understand what you mean.
That man, when he was in the grip of his sickness, took delight in the evils by which he was possessed, and by his presence he distressed us when we were sane. But now, when his sickness has subsided and he breathes again, his whole being is plagued by piercing pain, and we likewise suffer no less than before. Have we not then sorrows twice as great as before?
We do indeed. So I fear that some blow has come from a god. For how can it be otherwise if after he has stopped his raging, he is no more cheerful than when he was sick?
That's how matters stand. You must recognize it.
And whence began this evil that swooped down upon him so suddenly? Disclose his misfortunes to us, since we share your sorrow.
Every detail of the deed you shall learn as partners in my pain. In the dead of night, when the camp's evening watch fires no longer burned bright, he seized his double-edged sword, eager to steal out on some senseless mission. And I rebuked him. What on earth are you doing, Ajax? Why are you setting out on this enterprise? No herald has summoned you, no trumpet sounded. Indeed, the entire army is sound asleep now. But he shot back his stride and tired tune. Women should be seen, not heard. And I, so schooled, ceased while he rushed off alone. As to what happened yonder, I cannot say. But he came back inside, hauling hobble balls, herdsmen's dogs, and woolly prey. Some of them he beheaded. Others he turned upside down, slitting their throats, slicing their spines. Still others he tortured while tied up, falling on the flocks as if they were human creatures. At last, bursting out of the doors, he dragged up wild words, ranting at some shadow, first against Atreus' sons, then at ODYSSEUS, howling with laughter at how much humiliation, how much vengeance he had inflicted on them during his reign. Then bursting back into the house again, with difficulty, somehow, slowly he comes back to his senses. And when he surveyed the shelter, heaped high with the havoc and ruin caused by his delusion, he bent his head and bellowed. Amidst the wreckage of the corpses of slaughtered sheep, he sat wrecked, his clenched nails clutching and clawing his hair in his hands. And for a long, long time, he just sat speechless. Then he unleashed those terrible threats that still haunt me if I didn't reveal every detail of the missions that had befallen him. He asked about the sorry situation in which he found himself. And I, friends, being overcome by fear, rehearsed it all, every detail of what he did, as much as I knew for sure. But straight away he exploded in long sighs of sorrow, sighs such as I'd never heard from him before. For he always insisted that such plaintive lamentations were the mark of a cowardly and heavy-hearted man. In the past, whenever he had cause to grieve, he groaned deep, like a lowing bull, without any sound of shrill wailing. But now, laid low by such a pathetic plight, without food, without drink, amidst cattle slain by his sword, quietly the man sits, fallen down. And clearly he wants to do some dreadful deeds, for his words and lamentations somehow suggest as much. That's why I've come out here to find you, friends. Go in and support him if somehow you can, for men like him are won over by the words of friends.
O TECMESSA, daughter of Teleucus, it's a bitter tale you tell us, how his misfortune drove the man into a wild and fatal frenzy.
Ajax's cries are heard from off stage.
Io, moi.
Soon it seems you'll learn more. Or didn't you hear Ajax wailing? Didn't you hear how he bellows?
Io, moi.
The man seems either to be sick or else to be grieved by the remnants of his former sickness, which are still with him where he is.
Io, pai, oh my son.
Oi, moi, wretch me, Eurysaces, he is shouting about you. Whatever is he so eager for? Wherever are you, son? Oi, moi.
I am calling TEUCER. Where is TEUCER? Will he forever be plundering for booty while I perish?
The man seems to be coming to his senses. Hurry up, open the door. Perhaps when he sees us, his sense of shame might sober him.
Behold, I am opening the door. You can look at the deed he has done and see how it is with the man himself.
Enter Ajax, wheeled out on a trolley, sitting motionless amid slaughtered animals. Strophe 1.
O beloved sailors, you alone of my friends, alone abiding in the right way. Look at me. What a wave, lashed by a storm's surge of blood, races round and round just now, encircling me.
Oi, moi, how you seem to bear witness too truly. The deed before us shows how completely he is out of his mind.
O comrades of my crew, you who helped me navigate our ship skillfully, you who embarked with me, plying the oar through the ocean, I see that you, alone of my shepherds, will assist me. Well, come, slay me.
Hush, don't speak so blasphemously. Don't treat evil with an evil cure and keep adding to the anguish of your doom.
Don't you see me, the bold, the brave-hearted, the fearless fighter of his foe? Yes, me, so awesome in the might of my hands amidst harmless beasts. Alas, the howling laughter. Alas, the utter humiliation.
I beseech you, Lord Ajax, do not keep saying such things.
TECMESSA approaches Ajax near the door of his hut.
Won't you get out of here? Be gone to other pastures. Aye, 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 aye.
By the gods, yield and come to your senses.
Ah me, my unhappy fate. I have let those goddamn fiends slip from my hands. Instead, I assaulted cattle with crooked horns and those famous flocks of goats, spilling their black blood.
But why go on grieving after a deed that's been done? For these things could not be other than they are.
O you who see everything, who hear everything, instrument of evil, son of Laertes, filthiest trickster in all the army, how loudly you must be laughing in your delight.
Everyone laughs and weeps by the whim of the gods.
Would that I, though shattered by disaster, could see him. Io moi moi.
Say nothing too proud. Don't you see what ruin you're in?
O Zeus, father of my ancestors, if only I could kill that traitorous trickster, that repugnant rogue, and those two twin-sceptered kings before I finally die myself.
When you pray for this, pray as well for me to die together with you. For why should I live once you're dead?
Io, darkness, my light, O gloom of the underworld, to eyes like mine most bright. Take me, both of you, take me to live in your house, take me, for I am no longer worthy to look upon the race of gods for any help, or upon the race of men, creatures of a day. It is Zeus's daughter, valiant goddess, who tortures me to my destruction. So where is one to flee? Where shall I go? Where shall I stay? If every conceivable way of escape has disappeared, and revenge is close at hand to repay my devotion to such a foolish hunt, and all the army, with swords brandished in both hands, would slay me?
Alas, I am indeed a wretched woman, that so son a soldier should speak such words which she would never before have dared.
Ah, you rushing rivers that surge to the sea, you caves along the coast and wooded pastures on the shore. For a long time, much too long, you have detained me at Troy. But no longer will you keep me here, no longer will I draw up the breath of life. Let the man of sense understand this. O neighboring streams of the Scamander, so well disposed to all the other Greeks, no longer shall you look upon me. I shall speak a mighty word, a soldier such as Troy never saw in all the armada that sailed from the Greek land. But now I lie here thus, in the dust, stripped of honor.
In truth, I don't have the power to restrain you, but I don't know how I am to let you speak on. So grave are the evils into which you have fallen.
Aye, whoever would have dreamt that this name of mine, Ajax, would echo so exactly these agonies of mine. Twice now I have cause to cry out, aye, even thrice, with such calamity have I collided. For I am a man whose father, after having won by his battle prowess the first prize of all the army, and the most beautiful one, returned home from this land of Mount Ida, crowned with glory. But I, the son of that man, after sailing with no less strength to the very same Troy and having defended the Greeks no less by the deeds of my hand, I die in such disgrace, stripped of honor by the Greeks. And yet this much, at least, I think I know. If Achilles had still been alive and was to award to anyone his armor as the first prize for prowess, no one else would have snatched them before me. But as it turned out, the sons of Atreus procured for them a man who was a scheming, stop-at-nothing scoundrel, and they have thrust aside my triumphs. If my distorted eyes and warped wits hadn't swerved perversely from my intention, never would they have put a matter of justice to the vote in this way against another man. But as it turned out, just when I raised my hand to slay them, Zeus's daughter, the invincible goddess with grim Gorgon eyes, tripped me up, casting upon me a fit of lunatic frenzy, so that I steeped my hands in the blood of these dumb beasts. Now those men exult, laughing at me because they have escaped, though certainly without my consent. But if someone of the gods should strike, truly even the coward could elude the braver man. So now what must I do? Since clearly I am hated by the gods, detested by the Greek army, and abhorred by all of Troy and these her plains. Shall I sail homeward across the Aegean, abandoning my station by the anchored ships and leaving the sons of Atreus all alone? And what face shall I show when I appear before my father Telamon? How will he ever bear to look upon me when I appear naked, stripped of the prize for prowess, a prize which he won as a great crown of glory? No, doing that is intolerable. Well, shall I charge the ramparts of the Trojans, dueling alone against them, alone, performing some useful deed, and then, at the end of it all, perishing? Such action would, no doubt, delight the sons of Atreus. No, that cannot be. Some test must be sought, such that from it I'll show my aged father that in my real nature, at least, the son who was born from him is no gutless coward. Shameless it is for the man who experiences no change in his miseries to desire a long life. For what joy abides in tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, now pushing the pieces towards death's door, now pulling them back. I count as worthless the kind of man who warms himself with vain and vacuous hopes. To die with honor or live with honor, that is the choice the man of nobility must make. You have heard the whole story.
No one will ever say, Ajax, that you've given a bastard speech. No, it is a child of your own heart. Yet all the same, stop and permit your friends to overrule your purpose so that you dismiss these anxious thoughts.
O Master Ajax, the crushing misfortune imposed by necessity is certainly the gravest evil betwixt mortals. I was born the daughter of a father who was free, prosperous and powerful if any Phrygian was, but now I'm a slave. For so it was decreed by the gods, I suppose, and above all, by your strong hand. That's why, since the time I came to share your bed, I consider only your best interest. So I beseech you by Zeus, who has watched over our hearth, and by the bed wherein you were joined with me, don't deem me worthy to suffer the stinging rumor of your foes, letting me fall into some stranger's hands. For on the day you die and by your death desert me, be sure that on that self-same day I shall be seized and manhandled by the Greeks, and together with your son shall eat the nurturing bread of bondage. Then some master of mine will greet me scornfully, shooting from his bow some insult such as this. Behold this lady, the bedmate of Ajax, once the armies made his warrior, the nurturing mother's inviolable life, now exchanged for a slave's low subsistence. Such will be some master's insult. Thus it is that destiny will harass me. But for you and your family, these words will bring shame. So respect and honor your father. Feel shame before him. Don't abandon him in grim old age. Feel shame too before your mother, shareholder of many long years. Often she prays to the gods that you return home alive. And pity your son, my lord, who, if robbed of the nurture of youth, will pass his life alone, bereft of you, under the eye of orphan masters who are neither kin nor kin. Consider how great will be the evil you bequeath that boy and me when you die. For me, there is no longer anything to which I can look except you. You annihilated my fatherland with your spear, and another destiny struck down my mother and father. So now they dwell dead in dark halls of Hades. What fatherland then would there be for me except you? What prosperity could I have? All my safety depends on you. So hold fast the memory of me too. Surely for a true man, it is right to cherish memory, if perhaps he has enjoyed some pleasure. Of kindness, kindness is the mother always. From whomsoever such memory fades, after he has been treated well, he could never more be reckoned a man of nobility.
Ajax, I could wish you had pity in your heart, even as I have, for then you would praise this woman's words.
Yes, she will most certainly obtain praise from me, if only she will undertake to do exactly what is commanded.
Of course, my beloved Ajax, I will obey your every word.
Then bring me my son, so that I may see him.
Oh, but in my terror, I release him from my keeping.
During these troubles of mine, or what exactly do you mean?
Yes, afraid that somehow in his misfortune, he might meet you and die.
That would truly have been in character with my destiny.
Well, anyhow, I guarded him so as to prevent that happening.
I applaud your deed and the forethought you showed.
Then how, under these circumstances, can I help you?
Allow me to speak to him and to see him face to face.
Certainly. He is being guarded by servants nearby.
Then what's the delay in his arrival?
Son, your father is calling you. Bring him here, servant. Whichever one of you is just now guiding him with your hand.
Is he coming, the man you're calling, or hasn't he heard your word?
Here comes one of the servants right now bringing the boy near.
Enter Eurystheus down a side ramp, led by a servant holding his hand.
Lift him up here, for he won't be frightened to look upon this newly slaughtered blood if he is truly mine, truly his father's son. But straightway he must be broken in, like a young colt, to the rugged and raw customs of his father, and molded to the likeness of his nature.
The servant lifts Eurystheus over the animal carcasses and into Ajax's arms.
O son, may you prove luckier than your father, but like him in all other ways, then you would prove yourself no coward. Yet even now I have cause to envy you, for this at least, that you have no inkling of these ills. Yes, the sweetest life consists of ignorance, understanding nothing, that is, till time teaches you joy and sorrow. But when you come to this, you must show your father's foes your birth and breeding, what sort of son you are, and by what sort of father you were reared. Meanwhile, be nourished by light breezes, and cherish your boyhood days, a joy to your mother here. Of one thing I am certain, none of the Greeks will insult you with hateful scorn, even though you are separated from me. So staunch a gatekeeper is TEUCER, whom I shall leave him behind, as the resolute and unhesitating guardian of your nurture, even if at the moment he has gone far off, hunting down enemies. Shield bearers and seamen, to you, as to him, I charge this common kindness, and tell TEUCER my bidding, namely to bring this boy to my home and show him to Telamon and to my mother, Ereboia, so that he may always support and nourish their old age until they reach the innermost chambers of the god below. As for my armor, there shall be no contest of setting them up as a prize. No, no judges, certainly not the man who wrecked me. But you, son, take the very thing that begets your name, Eurystheus, broad shield, wielding it by the strong sewn arm strap, my sevenfold leather-laden spear-proof shield. The rest of the arms will have been buried in my grave with me. Quickly now, receive this child here and shut the house up tight, and don't keep up this weeping and wailing in front of the hut. Truly she's prone to pity and want to wail, a woman. Shut the door double quick. It's not the mark of a skilled surgeon to chant somber incantations of her pain that calls for cutting.
I became afraid when I hear such vehement zeal, and your tongue with its sharpened edge gives me no pleasure.
My lord Ajax, whatever do you desire to do in your heart?
Stop the questions and cross-examination. Restraint is a splendid thing.
Oh, how my spirit sinks. As a suppliant, I beg you by your very own son and by the gods, do not betray us.
You vex me much too much. The gods! Don't you understand that in no way am I still a debtor under bond to them?
Shh! Don't speak so blasphemously.
And you speak to those who listen.
But won't you be persuaded?
You already speak far too much.
Yes, because I'm frightened, my lord.
Servants, won't you shut the doors right now?
In the name of the gods, be softened.
You seem to me to think like a fool if you suppose that even now you can school my character.
Exit Ajax on the trolley into the hut, followed by TECMESSA and Eurysakes. Second choral song.
O island of glory, Salamis, you dwell, if I recall, happily amidst the sea that strikes your shores, conspicuous and in full view to all eyes always. But for me, in my misery, ancient is the time when I wait in Troy's grassy meadows beneath Mount Ida, and immeasurable are the months when I make my bed, always worn away by time, holding the evil expectation that one day soon I shall complete the journey to the abhorred Hades, invisible annihilator who cannot be turned away. And now Ajax sits beside me, hard to heal, a new competitor whom I must wrestle in the contest. Oi, moi, who shares his home with a madness sent by the gods. In some bygone day, Salamis, you launched him forth full of power, full of Ares' impetuous war spirit. But now, a lonely shepherd of his mind's thoughts, has been found to be a mighty sorrow to his friends. And the former deeds of his hands, deeds of mightiest valor, have fallen to ruin, hateful deeds in the eyes of those hateful men, the loathsome sons of Atreus. Surely his mother, nursed by ancient days, white and wizened from old age, upon hearing of the sickness that eats at his heart, cry woe, cry woe. The ill-fated woman won't refrain from the nightingale's dirge, that piteous bird. No, she'll shriek shrill songs of sorrow, while the thuds of thumping hands will fall on her breasts and the tearing of grizzled hair. Yes, better hidden in Hades would be the man who suffers from six senses, straying idly. He who came from his father's lineage to the noblest station of all the war-worn Achaeans, yet is no longer steadfast in his nurturing passion. No, now he stands estranged from that disposition. What misery awaits you, forlorn father, soon to learn the hard-to-bear ruin of your son, a doom such as no lifetime of any of the descendants of Achaeus has ever yet nurtured, apart from this man right here.
Act 2. Enter Ajax from his hut, sword in hand, followed by TECMESSA.
All things in his long and immeasurable march, time begets from darkness into the light, and then once again hides. There is nothing not to be expected, but even the fierce oath is taken prisoner by time and proven weak. So, too, stubborn wills. For even I, who was lately so fierce and firm, like iron hardened by dipping, yes, my speech has become womanish and weak, and my sharp edge smoothed by this lady here. I feel pity at leaving behind among my enemies, a widow and her orphan son, while I shall go to the bathing place and meadows by the shore to wash away my defilement and escape the heavy wrath of the goddess. And going to where I can find some solitary spot untrodden, I shall hide this sword of mine, most hateful of my weapons, after digging a deep pit in the earth where none shall see it. But let night and Hades keep it safe down below, for not since the moment that this hand received this sword as a gift from Hector, my most hostile foe, have I yet gotten anything good from the Greeks. Yes, it's true, the proverb that men pronounce, enemies' gifts are no gifts at all and bring no benefit. Well then, we will know henceforth how to yield to the gods, and in turn we will learn how to pay homage to the sons of Atreus. They are the rulers and one must yield. Why not? For even fiercest and most powerful forces yield to the honor and authority of office. Thus winter's snow-strewn streets give way to summer's fruit-laden harvest, and the endless rotations of night circling round stand aside for the white steeds of dawn to set ablaze their radiant lamp. And the breath of gusting gales sets the groaning sea soundly asleep. Likewise, all-powerful sleep releases those he has bound, but those he has captured he does not hold fast always. So how shall we not learn moderation and good sense? Well, I at least shall. For only now do I understand that our enemy is to be hated only so far, knowing that he will in turn become a friend hereafter. While as regards a friend, I shall want to serve and help only so far, knowing that he will not remain so always. For to all men, the harbor of fellowship is treacherous and untrustworthy. So, as regards my intention, all shall turn out well. But you, woman, go inside and keep praying to the gods that what my heart desires so passionately will be completed through to the end, the very end. And you, comrades in arms, honor these wishes of mine in the same way as this lady here. Also instruct TEUCER, if he comes, to take care of us and remain loyal to you at the same time. For I am going to the place where I must journey, so do what I bid you, and soon, perhaps, you all might learn that even though I am unhappy, I've been saved.
Ajax exits by the side. TECMESSA re-enters Ajax's hut. Strophe.
I shudder with the passion of love. I soar aloft on wings of joy. Io joy, Pan, Pan, hail, Pan, Pan. See, roaming God, appear to me. Leave behind the snow-smitten ridges of Mount Selene. O Lord, who leads the gods in dance, so you can join us and strike up the dances of Mount Nysa and of Cretan Knossos, spontaneous self-taught dances. Yes, now I want to dance. And may Apollo, Lord of Delos, traverse the Icarian Sea to be with me in presence manifest and in spirit ever gracious. Ares has dispelled the dreadful sorrow from my eyes. Io joy, Io joy. Now, O Zeus, now again the shining white light of the bright day can approach our swift sea-speeding ships, since Ajax again forgets his toils and troubles, and once more has fulfilled the ordinances of the gods with all the appointed sacrifices, showing due reverence and the greatest loyalty to their divine law. All things does mighty time extinguish and then set ablaze. So I would say that there is nothing that can be declared impossible, since Ajax, in a way not to be expected, has had his mind changed back again from his fits of anger against the sons of Atreus and from his mighty feuds.
Act 3. Enter messenger by side ramp.
Dear friends, first of all, I want to make an announcement. TEUCER is here, having just returned from the steep cliffs of Mysa. When he reached the general's headquarters in the middle of camp, immediately he was all abused by all the Greeks. For having learned that he was coming from afar, they surrounded him, and from all sides of their circle pummeled him with a volley of abuse. There was no one who stayed out of it, contemptuously calling him the blood brother of the madman who plotted against the army, adding that he wouldn't succeed in escaping the traitor's death, torn to shreds by stones. They reached such a fever pitch that swords suddenly stood ready in their hands, fully drawn from the sheaths. But the strife, after running to its furthest bounds, ceased when elders interceded with calmer words of conciliation. But where is our Ajax, so that I can tell him this? For to my master I must disclose the entire tale.
He isn't in his hut, but has just departed, having yoked a new resolve to a new mood.
You, then he who sent me on this mission sent me too slow, or else I myself am shown to have been too slow.
Why? What has been neglected in this urgent matter?
TEUCER forbade us to allow this man who is now inside his hut to go outside until he himself happened to be present.
Well, let me tell you, Ajax is departed, having turned from his intention towards one more profitable. In this way, he could be reconciled with the gods with whom he had been angry.
These are words full of folly and more folly, if indeed Calchas prophesizes with any intelligence.
What prophecy? With what knowledge of this matter do you come?
This much I know, since I happened to be present. Calchas, on his own, moved away from the circle of chiefs seated in council, separating himself from the sons of Atreus. With all kind intent, he grasped TEUCER's right hand and spoke, urging him by every possible device to confine Ajax to his hut during the day that has now appeared, this, the present one, and not to release him and leave him to himself if he ever wished to see Ajax alive. For, as Calchas went on to say, it is for this day alone that Athena's wrath still drives him. Yes, declared the seer, it is bodies grown too strong and stupid that are the sort to fall into grievous afflictions sent by the gods, whenever a man is born a mere mortal, but then doesn't think in accord with the limits of human nature. For Ajax, from the very first moment he set forth from home, was found to be foolish, despite his father's sound counsel. For Telamon addressed him thus, "Son, seek to prevail with the spear, yet always seek to prevail with the help of the gods." But Ajax answered boastfully and thoughtlessly, "Father, backed by the gods, even a mere nobody could achieve such conquests, but I am confident that even without them, I shall win this fame." Such was his arrogant boast. Then, on a second occasion, when divine Athena, spurring him on, enjoined him to a murderous hand against his enemy, he shot back a reckless retort, too blasphemous to be repeated. "Queen, stand beside the rest of the Greeks, but the tide of battle will never burst forth through my line." With such bravado, he incurred the full fury of Athena's wrath, because he didn't think in accord with human nature. Yet, if indeed he is still alive on this very day, perhaps we might, with the help of the gods, be his saviors. Such was the story the seer told. Straightway, rising from his seat, TEUCER sends me with this mandate for you to observe. But if our purpose has been frustrated and foiled, then that man no longer lives, at least if Calchas is a wise seer.
Oh, cruelly vexed TECMESSA, offspring of an ill-fated family, come and see this man and what words he speaks, for his story shaves so close to the skin that one cannot rejoice.
Enter TECMESSA alone from Ajax's hut.
Why rouse me anew from my resting place, a forlorn woman who has only just now found a respite from unremitting griefs?
Hear from this man, since he comes bringing a report about Ajax's plight, which has caused me grief.
Alas, what are you saying, fellow? Surely we are not doomed.
I don't know about your plight, but as for Ajax, I do know that I have no confidence about him if he is indeed outside.
Well, actually, he is outside, so I feel anguish at what you're saying.
He is the very man TEUCER expressly orders us to confine under the shelter of his hut and not to let out alone.
But where is TEUCER, and for what reason does he say this?
That man has now just arrived, and he expects that this going forth of Ajax will bring his destruction.
Oi moi, wretch me! From whom ever did he learn this?
From Thestor's son, the prophet Calchas, death or life, that's what he said this very day brings for Ajax.
Alas, friends, protect me from the crushing misfortune imposed by necessity. You there, urge TEUCER to come quickly, and you hasten to the western coast, and you get on to the eastern coast. Search out my husband's ill-fated departure. For I realize that about this man I have been deceived, and that from his former kindness I have been cast out. Oi moi, what shall I do, child? I must not sit still. No, I too shall go as far as I have the strength to do so. Let us away, let us run. It's no time for sitting still if we want to save a man who's speeding to his death.
I am ready to go, and I'll show readiness in more than words alone, for speed of action and speed of foot shall follow them at once.
Exit TECMESSA, messenger, and chorus in 3 separate groups. Hastily down the side ramps. During the commotion of this massive and highly unusual exit, the stage and orchestra are emptied. The small stage crew brings on stage a simple screen and places it over the central stage door so that Ajax's hut is no longer the backdrop. The stage now represents the untrodden stretch of the Trojan seashore described by Ajax. Scene change. Exit, enter, Ajax alone by a side ramp carrying his sword. He walks slowly forward and plants his sword in the ground, blade facing upwards.
The slayer stands steadfast where it should cut most sharply, if a man has leisure even to indulge in such reflections. First of all, it was a gift from Hector, of all my foemen friends, the one most detested in my heart and most hateful to my eyes. Yes, it is fixed firm in this enemy soil of Troy, sharpened anew on an iron-eating whetstone, and I have fixed the blade myself, packing the earth around it, so as to be most kind in killing this man quickly. So we are well equipped. Under these circumstances, it is you, Zeus, who must assist me first, as is but fitting. I will ask you for no large gift of honor to take. Send some messenger, I pray, to carry the bad news to TEUCER, so that he may be the first to lift up my corpse after I have fallen upon this blood-stained sword. Let me not be spied first by one of my foes and thrown out, exposed to the dogs and birds as booty. Such is my supplication to you, O Zeus. At the same time, I call upon Hermes, conductor of souls to the underworld, to set me asleep soundlessly, by one swift leap that brings no convulsions, no struggle, when I have ripped through my ribs with this sword here. Yes, and I summon as advocates those who are forever virgins, who always see all sufferings among mortals, the holy, far-striding Furies. Let them mark my misery, how I have been ruined by the sons of Atreus. May they seize those wicked men and destroy them wickedly, even as they see me fallen, slain by my own hand. So may they too perish, slain by their dearest offspring. Go to it, you swift, avenging Furies, drink deep, suck the blood of every soldier in the army, spare none of them. And you, who steer your chariot up through the steep sky, O sun god Helios, whenever you see the land of my father, check your gold-studded reins and announce the desperate acts I have done and the fate that has befallen me. Yes, announce them to the old man, my father, and the hapless woman who nursed me. Poor mother, surely when she hears this news, her wailing will resound throughout the entire city. But it's no part of the business at hand to lament vainly like this. No, the deed must be done, and with some quickness. O Thanatos, Thanatos, come, witness and watch me. But in that other world too, I shall speak to you when I'm with you. And I address you, bright light, which I still see in this shining day, and you too, sun, the charioteer, I address you for the very last time, and never again hereafter. O radiant light of day, O sacred soil of Salamis, my native land, O firm pillar of my father's hearth, farewell. O glorious Athens, and you, Piraeus, with whom I was nurtured, and you springs and rivers of this land, and you plains of Troy, I call on you who nurtured me. This is the very last word Ajax says to you. Henceforth, only to the dead in Hades shall I tell my story.
Ajax leaps on his sword in full view of the audience. Silence. Enter the two half choruses by opposite ramps.
Double, double, toil and trouble. Where, oh where have I not gone? And still no place draws me to share the secret of his whereabouts. Look, look, again I hear some sound. Yes, you hear us, your comrades, fellow sailors of your ship. What news then? The entire shore west of the fleet has been searched for tracks. Well, have you discovered anything? Yes, an abundance of toil, but nothing more to see. Well, as a matter of fact, neither does the man reveal his presence anywhere along the path to the east where the sun rises. Who, I pray, who of the toiling sons of the sea engaged in sleepless hunting, or who of the goddesses of Mount Olympus, or of the rivers flowing into the Bosphorus, who might tell me if he sees the raw-hearted man roaming somewhere? For it is a grievous thing that my ship, after all the weary wandering and long laboring, cannot speed to him on a favoring wind, cannot see where he is, the feeble, lifeless man.
Enter TECMESSA by a side ramp, unseen by the chorus.
Io moi.
Whose cry was that? From the thicket there, a cry like a forlorn flute.
Io, ill-fated woman.
There she is. The young bride, captive of his spear, I see her, TECMESSA, steeped in the anguish of her wailing.
Destroyed, devastated, demolished, oh friends.
What is it?
Ajax, here lies our Ajax, nearly slaughtered, folded around his hidden sword.
Oi, moi, my hopes of homecoming, vanished, gone. Oi, moi, my lord, you have slain me, your shipmate. Miserable man, broken-hearted woman.
So it is with him. We can only cry out, ay, 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 yes.
Ill-fated man, by whose hand then did he do this deed?
He himself by himself. That's clear. This sword accuses him. He fixed it fast in the ground, then fell on it.
Alas, my blind folly. It was all alone then that your blood was shed, shielded from your friends. Alas, so deaf, so dumb, I wasn't careful. Where does he lie, the intractable man named for his agony, Ajax?
TECMESSA begins to cover the sword-pierced corpse with her cloak in full view of the audience.
Mark me. He must not be looked at. No, I will cover him with this all-enfolding cloak. For no one who is a true friend could bear to see him as he blows up through his nostrils and up from his murderous wound the blackened blood of his self-inflicted slaughter.
After TECMESSA shrouds the corpse, the stage crew carries the screen forward from the front of the stage building to center stage so that it now also conceals TECMESSA, the dead Ajax, and the stage door, thus allowing the Ajax actor to exit unseen and another to be replaced on the ground as the new corpse. TECMESSA speaks from behind the screen.
Oi, moi, what shall I do? Which of your friends will I lift you up? Where is TEUCER? If he should come, how timely his arrival would be. Then he could join in the burial rites of this fallen brother. Oh, ill-fated Ajax, in what a state you are for the man you are. How worthy you are, even in your enemy's eyes, to receive lamentation.
So then, hapless man, you were fated over time to fulfill by your stiff-hearted resolve a dire destiny of boundless toils and troubles. Such, I see, were the groans you bellowed out, raw-minded man, all night and through the shining day, groans full of hatred at Atreus' sons, groans fraught with fatal passion. So clearly that time was the great beginning and mighty magistrate of sorrows, when the contest for Achilles' golden arms was set up to decide the most valiant warrior.
Io, moi.
Genuine sorrow, I know, goes to the heart.
Io, moi.
In no way do I disbelieve you, lady, even as you twice cry out, oi, moi, since just now you have been violently robbed of one so beloved.
You can opine about these sorrows, but I know their pain all too well.
Yes, I agree.
Alas, my son, to what a joke of slavery we are going. What taskmasters now stand over the two of us.
Alas, you have given voice to the unspeakable deeds of Atreus' two ruthless sons by this cry of sorrow, but may the god keep it away.
These things would not have reached this state but for the gods.
Far too heavy is the heartache they have brought to pass.
Yet such is the affliction and sorrow that Pallas Athena, dread goddess, daughter of Zeus, creates so as to oblige Odysseus.
Surely then, that much-enduring hero exults maliciously in his black-faced heart, yes, and laughs his loud laugh at these miseries caused by this madness. Phew, phew, alas, the twin kings, those fine sons of Atreus, will laugh with him when they hear the news.
Well, let them laugh. Let them rejoice over this man's misfortunes. Even if they didn't feel the need for him when he was alive, perhaps they'll lament his death in the streets of war. For men whose judgment is evil don't know the good they hold in their hands until they throw it away. To me, his death is as bitter as it is sweet to them and pleasant for him. For everything he desires so passionately, he has got for himself the very death he wanted. Why then should they laugh scornfully over him? His death is a matter for the gods, not for them. No, not for them. So let Odysseus revel in his insolence. It is to no purpose. For them, you see, Ajax lives no longer. But for me, he is gone, completely gone, leaving only misery and mourning.
Act 4, enter TEUCER with an attendant by a side ramp.
Oi, moi, moi.
Hush, I think I hear TEUCER's voice shouting out a song of sorrow that hits the mark of this disaster.
O dearest Ajax, O bright face of brotherly joy, have you indeed done your business at the prevailing rumors reports?
He's dead, TEUCER. You must know this.
Alas, then what heavy misfortune.
In such circumstances,
Ay me, all the suffering.
you have every reason to lament.
Alas, over passionate haste.
Yes, too rash indeed, TEUCER.
Ay me, but tell me of his son. Where is he? Where in this land of Troy will I find him?
Alone beside the huts.
Well, quickly, quickly, won't you bring him here before one of our enemies steals him, like the cub of a lioness made desolate by the death of her mate? Go on, get moving, share the labor. Mark me, everyone loves to laugh over the dead when they lie helpless.
Exit TECMESSA.
Well, in fact, while he was alive, TEUCER, he commanded you to care for this boy, as indeed you now do care for him.
Seeing the corpse for the first time.
Alas, of all the sights that these eyes have ever seen, this is the most painful. Of all the journeys that have grieved my heart, the one I just traveled is the most gut-wrenching. O most beloved Ajax, when I learned of your doom, I pressed hard on your path and tracked you down. A swift rumor, as if sent by some god, sped through all the Greek army that you were dead and gone. And as I heard this, helpless and still some distance away, I groaned deep in sorrow. But now the sight of you shatters me. Oi, moi. Come, you, lift off the covering, so I may see the full horror.
TEUCER's attendant pulls back TECMESSA's cloak covering Ajax's face.
Oh, face hard to look at and full of bitter daring. How many sorrows have sown for me by dying? For where, tell me, where can I go now? Among what sorts of people, me, who supported you nowhere in your toils and troubles? No doubt Telamon, your father and mine, would greet me gladly and graciously when he sees me returning without you. How could he not? Being the kind of man who can't laugh for pleasure, even in good fortune. What thought will such a man keep concealed? What insult won't he hurl against the bastard born from an enemy's spear and a captive concubine, against one who betrayed you, most beloved Ajax, by cowardice, by unmanliness, or by treachery, all to gain control of your royal powers and your palace after you had perished? Such taunts will he hurl, an ill-tempered man, ornery in his old age, who flies into a fury at nothing, all for the pleasure of provoking strife. And in the end, banished from my fatherland, I'll become a castaway, branded by his arguments a slave instead of a free man. So much for home. But here at Troy, my enemies are many, my advantages few. Even those few that I've found have vanished now that you're dead. Moi, moi. What am I to do? How shall I extract you, sad man, from the spike of this sword, so sharp and spiteful in its shimmering shine? The slayer which, after all, made you breathe out your last breath. Do you see how Hector, though dead, was destined finally to kill you?
Addressing the chorus and holding the sword which he has just extracted from Ajax.
By the gods, consider the fate of these two men. Hector, lashed fast, was dragged from the rail of Achilles' chariot by the war belt which this man had given him, his flesh frayed and mangled all that time till he gasped out his life. And this man, who possessed it as a gift from that man, has been killed by the sword in a fatal fall. Was it not a vengeful fury that forged that sword, and did not savage Hades fashion this war belt? Yes, the god of death, grim reaper and fine craftsman. So I, for my part, would say that it is the gods who have contrived these things, just as they always contrive all things for mortals. But whoever finds these views unacceptable in his judgment, let that man be content with his opinions, as I am with mine.
Cut short your speech. Consider this man's burial, how you'll hide him in a grave, and what you'll presently reply. For I see an enemy, and he'll likely be laughing when he arrives, mocking our misfortunes, as is the wont of scoundrels.
But who indeed is the man you see coming from the army?
It's Menelaus, for whose sake we set forth on this sailing.
I see him. Now that he's near, he's not difficult to know.
Enter Menelaus at the very moment when TEUCER is in the process of raising Ajax's corpse from the ground.
Hey there. Yes, you. I forbid you to join in the bearing or burial of this body and any last rites. Let it lie just where it is.
To what purpose have you spewed and spent such ugly words?
It's what seems most fitting to me and to the commander-in-chief.
Could you kindly then tell me why you've put forward your charge?
Because we had hoped that we were bringing him from home to be an ally in arms and a friend of the Greeks. But we've discovered in our dealings with him that he's more hateful than the Phrygians. He plotted the bloody slaughter of the whole army and marched out under the cover of night to slay us with his spear. And if one of the gods hadn't extinguished his enterprise, we would have suffered the same fate that befell him, bearing most foully slain and left lying in shame while he was still alive. But now a god has exchanged one victim for another, diverting his violent outrage so that it fell on sheep and cattle. So there is no man possessed of so much power as to entomb his body in a grave. No, he will be thrown out on the yellow sand and become food for the birds that haunt the shore. So don't stir up some storm of menacing strength. Although we couldn't master him while he was alive, we shall rule him when he's dead, even if you don't wish it, keeping him in line by force of hand. For on no occasion while he lived was he ever willing to listen to any words of mine. No, now in truth, it's the mark of a vile man that he claims the right to disobey his superiors, even though he's only a commoner. For a city's laws could never carry it on a prosperous course if fear doesn't find a firm and principled place there, nor could an army any longer be ruled with discipline if fear and a sense of shame don't serve as safeguards. But a man, even if he has built a burly body, must expect that he may fall even from a small misfortune. Be certain of this. The man who enjoys safety and security is the man in whom fear and a sense of shame abide. But wherever he's allowed to run riot and do whatever he wants, expect that this city, though at first sped by steady winds, sooner or later sinks deep down into the depths. So for me too, let a certain timely fear be fixed firmly, and let's not expect that after doing whatever we please, we won't pay a price which will cause us pain. These things go round and round by turns. Once he was a man full of fiery insults and violent outrage. But now it's my turn to think big thoughts. So in front of everyone, I forbid you to bury him, lest, in burying him, you sink into your own grave.
Menelaus, after laying down a foundation of wise judgments, don't be a man full of insults and outrage against the dead.
Never again, gentlemen, would I be amazed at a man who, being a low-born nothing, later misses the mark for that reason. When men who have reputed to be high-born nobility miss the mark so widely in their oratory. Come, sir, please repeat that preface. Are you really claiming that you took Ajax and brought him here as an ally for these Achaeans? You did this? Didn't he, in fact, sail of his own volition as his own master? On what grounds are you this man's captain? On what grounds do you possess the authority to lord it over the troops he brought from home? You came as king of Sparta, not as our master. Nowhere was there set down any protocol of command whereby your right to govern him exceeds his to govern you. You sailed here as a subordinate to others, not as general of the whole force, such that you could ever be in charge of Ajax. No, go on commanding those you command, and chastise them with your high and holy words. But as for this man, whether it's you who order us not to bury him, or whether it's that other general, I will lay him out for burial as justice and duty to demand, not fearing that big mouth of yours. For he certainly didn't undertake this expedition for the sake of your wife, like those toil-worn lackeys, but on account of oaths to which he was sworn and bound. No, it certainly wasn't for you. He isn't in the habit of bestowing esteem on those he regards as nobodies. So go fetch some heralds and your generalissimo, then come back. Know that for all your bluster and bravado, I wouldn't twist and turn in fear so long as what you are.
As I said before, I dislike such taunting in a time of trouble, for stern statements sting, even when they're more than just.
Our archer man seems to think he's pretty big stuff.
Proud indeed, for it's no sordid skill I've acquired.
You'd really boast something big if you'd gotten a shield.
Even lightly armored, I'd be a match for you and all your hoplite gear.
How fiercely does your tongue feed your ferocity?
Yes, in a just cause, it's proper to think big thoughts.
What? Is it just for this man who has slain me to prosper?
Slain? Surely a strange word. If though dead, you're actually alive.
Only because a god saved me, but in that man's eyes, I'm dead.
Don't dishonor the gods if you've been saved by the gods.
Are you insinuating that I would disparage the gods' laws?
You do just that if you intervene to prevent the burial of the dead.
Well, I do forbid the burial of my enemies. It's not honorable.
What? Did Ajax ever confront you as an enemy?
He hated me, I hated him, and you knew it.
Of course he hated you, you crooked vote-tampering thief.
He was tripped up by the judge's joint decision, not mine.
You could certainly put a fair face on the art of clandestine conniving.
Someone whom I know shall suffer sorely for saying such things.
No more grief, I believe, than what we'll inflict on you.
One thing only shall I say, you must not bury this man.
And one thing only shall you hear in reply. He will be buried forthwith.
Once upon a time, I saw a bold-tongued braggart urging his crew to set sail in the winter. In him you would have found no voice when he was caught in the eye of a raging storm. No, he cowered under his cloak and suffered all the sailors to stomp on him at will. Just so, for both you and your brawling mouth, some huge storm blowing out of a tiny cloud might soon extinguish that blazing bluster.
So too have I seen a fellow full of folly, who mercilessly mocked his neighbor's misfortunes. And then someone resembling me and similar in disposition looked at him and said something like this: "Sir, do the dead no wrong. If you do, know for sure that you shall suffer." Face to face with such advice, he admonished the reckless fellow. And now I see that man, and he is, so it seems, none other than you. I haven't spoken in riddles, have I?
I'm leaving, since it would be a disgrace indeed if one who could use compulsion should be caught merely chastising with words.
Begone then. It is indeed more than a disgrace for me too, to hear a profane man chirping his petty chatter.
Exit Menelaus.
There will be some contest of great struggle and strife, but quick as you can, TEUCER, make haste to search out somewhere a hollow trench for this man where he can rest, a gloomy tomb of mold and mildew, yet one which men will remember always.
Enter TECMESSA and Eurysakes.
Look, here come those near and dear to this man, in the nick of time, both child and wife, to tend to the burial rites of this corpse of sorrow. Come, child, stand close, and as a suppliant cling to your father, who begot you.
TEUCER gently and slowly leads the boy towards Ajax's body.
Now kneel, as one who turns for help, holding in your hands those locks of hair, mine, hers, and yours is the third. Precious treasures to supplicate the spirits of the dead.
TEUCER cuts a lock of his own and one from TECMESSA. Then, as he pronounces his curse, he gives the hair to the boy.
But if any from the army should wrest you violently from this body, may he be banished, cast from his country dead and unburied, a wicked reward for a wicked man. And may his entire family, stem and stock, be severed at the root, in the same way as I have shorn this strand of hair.
TEUCER cuts a lock of Eurysakes' hair and hands it to the boy.
Hold him, son, and guard him, and don't let anyone move you. Fall to your knees and hold him fast.
As the child kneels and clasps the corpse, TEUCER turns to the chorus.
And you, sailors, don't just stand near like women and waiting. No, be real men and rally around until I've returned, having prepared his grave, though all the world forbids me.
Exit TEUCER. TECMESSA remains on stage, as does the boy, clinging to his father in a tableau.
Fourth
choral song.
Which I wonder will be the last one. When will the long number of years which in their restless wanderings beget our vagrant days, when will they cease? Years that forever bring on the unrelenting ruin of the toils of the warrior, the toils of swords slicing through Troy's sweeping plains, the toils that reward the Greeks with sorrow and shame. Would that he had first vanished into the vast sky or plunged down into Hades, whose dark house all mortals must share. That man who first showed the sons of Greece the hateful weapons of Ares, whose suffering all mortals must share. Alas, those toils of his that have begotten so many more toils. Yes, that man it was who brought ruin on the human race. That man dispensed for me neither the pleasure of garlands, nor of well-filled wine cups for comradeship, nor the sweet noise of the pipes to my sorrow, nor the pleasure of sleep at night. No, from the passions of love, alas, from the passions of love, he has cut me off. Yes, he was impetuous Ajax. But now this man has been given up to a hateful destiny. What pleasure then, what pleasure shall still attend upon me? Would that I might be where the wooded headland washed by the waves watches over the sea, beneath the flat summit of Cape Sunium, where we might greet holy Athens.
Re-enter TEUCER.
On guard, I've scurried back since I saw the general Agamemnon hastening here to trouble us. It's evident that he is about to unlock his mouth and unleash that foul, foolish tongue.
Enter Agamemnon in a hurry, attired in the full regalia of commander-in-chief.
You there. So it's you, they say, who's dared to bark out those terrible threats of yours and not yet paid the price. Yes, I mean you, the son of that spear-captured slave woman. No doubt if you'd been born and bred by a noble mother, you'd be spouting lofty words and prancing on your tiptoes, seeing that you, being a nothing, on behalf of this nothing, have stood against us, swearing so solemnly that we didn't come as generals and admirals of the Greeks or of you, but that Ajax set sail on his own boat, so you claim. Are these not impudent insults to hear from slaves? In defense of what sort of man are you croaking so insolently? Where did he go, or where did he stand where I did not? Are there then no true men among the Greeks except him? To our sorrow, it seems, we proclaim for them at that time the bitter contest for Achilles' armor if, by TEUCER showing, we're going to be vilified always and everywhere as scoundrels. Nor will it ever satisfy you people, even when defeated so soundly, to yield to the verdict that satisfied the majority of judges. Instead, no doubt, you'll always be slinging stinging insults or stabbing us stealthily in the dark, you who came short of the prize. Yet surely from such behavior there could never arise any fixed and firm establishment of law. No, not if we're going to expel the just victors and bring up to the front rank those laggards from behind. No, this must be stopped. For it isn't men with big burly bodies or broad backs who stand most steadily. No, it's those of sound minds who triumph always and everywhere. Huge as the ribs of the ox may be, yet it's a small whip that keeps him going straight on the road. I see the same medicine coming soon to remedy you if you don't acquire some measure of good sense. That man's no longer alive, but already a shadow, yet your boldness struts even more outrageously and your mouth runs even more freely. Won't you learn moderation, recognizing what you are by birth and by nature? Won't you bring along someone else, a freeborn man who can come before us and plead your case for you? Since when you're the speaker, I can no longer learn anything, for your barbarian tongue talks babble that I cannot understand.
Would that both of you had the good sense to learn moderation. I can offer to you both no better advice than this.
Alas, how very quickly gratitude for the dead fades away from men's minds and is found to turn traitor, if this man no longer remembers you, Ajax, not even in brief words. This man whom so often you protected, exposing your own life to the spear. But now all your efforts are dead and gone, flung off with contempt. And you, who just now have spoken so many mindless words, have you no memory at all, none at all, of the day when once you all were hemmed inside your own ramparts, already all but gone, reduced to nothings, routed by the spear, and Ajax alone came to the rescue? Don't you remember when the blazing fire was already raging around the tall masts and the decks of the ship's sterns? And Hector was leaping high across the trenches and onto the hulls of your ships? Who warded off that disaster? Didn't he do those deeds? This man here who you claim never set foot where you did not. In your eyes, didn't Ajax do as justice and duty demanded? And again, when he, all alone, fought against Hector alone, man against man. He was chosen by chance, not conscripted by command. No, he cast down among the rest not some runaway ballot, a clod of crumbling damp dirt, but the lot that was sure to leap out lightly from the hollow of that crested helmet before all the rest. It was this man here who did this deed, and I stood beside him, me, the slave, the one born from the barbarian mother. You skunk! How can you speak? How can you, speaking such nonsense, dare to look anyone in the eye? Don't you know the father who begot your father was Pelops, a barbarian, a Phrygian by birth? And that Atreus, who in turn begot you, set forth before his brother Thyestes a most impious feast, the flesh of his own children. You yourself were begotten from a Cretan mother, whose very own father, catching her in the embrace of some interloping adulterer from abroad, doomed her to destruction, to be devoured by the dumb fishes. Born of such base breeding, have you the nerve to mock mine? I am born from Telamon, my father, one whom won by his prowess the army's prize for preeminence, and so takes as his bedmate my mother, a princess by birth, daughter of Laomedon, whose Alcmene's son gave to that man as a special gift, selected for her beauty from the spoils of war. As the noble son of such noble parents on both sides, should I bring shame upon my bloodkin, whom now laid low amidst such toils and troubles, you cast out unburied and are not ashamed of saying so? Know this for sure, that if you all throw this man out anywhere, you'll also be throwing out 3 corpses to lie beside him. Yes, since it's honorable for me to die conspicuously in public, toiling for this man, rather than to die in battle on your wife's behalf, or should I say on behalf of your and your brother's wife. So look not to my interests only, but to yours as well. Since if you bring me any more grief, you'll wish someday that you had played the coward, rather than the bold bully at my expense.
Lord Odysseus, know that you have arrived just in time if you're here not to share in the binding, but rather in the loosening of the quarrel.
Enter Odysseus.
What is it, men? For from afar I heard Atreus' son shouting loudly over this valiant corpse.
Why, of course we shouted. King Odysseus, have we not just now been called the most shameful names by this fellow?
What sort of names? For I can pardon a man who, when assaulted by abuse, counterattacks with insults.
He heard shameful words because he did shameful deeds to me.
Well, what did he do such that you've actually been injured?
He says that he won't allow this corpse to go without its proper portion of burial rites, but will bury the body in spite of me.
Well, in the circumstance, may a friend speak the truth and remain your ally no less than before?
Speak, for otherwise I would surely be a fool, since I consider you my greatest friend among the Greeks.
Then hear me. By the gods, don't harden your hearts and so ruthlessly throw this man out unburied, nor let the spirit of violence overrule you with such a pitch of hatred that you trample on justice. For me, too, he was once the most detested man in the army, ever since I prevailed to gain the armor of Achilles. And yet, even though he was such to me, I could not dishonor him by denying that he was, in my eyes, the best and bravest of all the Argives, as many of us as came to Troy apart from Achilles, so that he would be dishonored by you unjustly. For it is not him at all that you would be destroying, but rather the laws of the gods. And as for the man of merit, if he should die, it is unjust to harm him, even if you happen to hate him.
You, Odysseus, champion his cause in this way against me?
Yes, I do. Though I hated him, while to hate was honorable.
Well, shouldn't you also trample on him when he's dead?
Son of Atreus, don't exult in advantage that brings dishonor.
But for the king to show piety and reverence is not easy.
It is easy, however, to honor the wise counsel of friends.
You're a man of merit, ought to obey those in authority.
Stop. Surely your authority is the victor when you surrender to friends.
Remember the kind of man to whom you grant this favor.
The man was once my enemy, but a noble one.
Well, what will you do? Have you such respect for an enemy corpse?
Yes, since in my eyes his valor wins out over his enmity.
I assure you, such men are too unstable and fickle to be trusted.
In truth, many who are now our friends become bitter foes later.
Well, are these the sort of friends that you recommend acquiring?
What I do not care to recommend is a stubborn soul.
You will, with this day's work, show us all up as cowards.
No, rather, as all the Greeks will say, men of justice.
Are you urging me then to let them bury the dead?
I am, for I too shall myself come to this someday.
In truth, it's always the same. Every man toils for his own profit.
Well, for whom should I toil rather than myself?
Then this deed shall be known as your doing, not mine.
If you act in this way, you will at all events be worthy at least.
Well, anyway, be fully assured that on you I would bestow an even greater favor than this. But he, both there and here, in death and in life, will remain my most hated enemy. You can do whatever you wish.
Agamemnon.
Whoever denies, Odysseus, that you are by nature wise in judgment, while you act thus, is himself a fool.
And now, what's more, to TEUCER I declare myself henceforth as much a friend as formerly I was a foe. And I wish to share in burying him who here lies dead, and share in the toil, and leave out none of those rights that mortals should toil over in homage to the most excellent men.
Most excellent Odysseus, in every way I commend you for these words. Indeed, you have much deceived my expectation, for although you were the most hateful of the Greeks to this man, you alone stood by him with a helping hand. And in his presence, though he was dead and you alive, you didn't harden your heart to exalt maliciously over him like a frantic, thunderstruck fool. The general who came, he and that blood brother of his, eager to throw Ajax out, disgraced and robbed of burial. So made the Father who presides over this Olympian sky above, in the fury of unfading memory and all-accomplishing justice, destroy those knaves, returning evil for evil, just as they wanted to throw out this man in undeserved grace. But as for you, O seed of venerable father of Laertes, I am loath to let you touch his body or take part in the ritual, lest I vex the dead by doing so. For all the rest, however, do indeed join in. And if you wish to bring along any soldier from the army, we shall hold no grievance. I will arrange all for the rest, but be assured that in our judgment, you're a man of merit.
Well, such was my wish. But if it doesn't please you for me to participate, I shall depart, accepting your decision.
Exit Odysseus.
Enough. Already the time has been much protracted. Quickly, some of you prepare a hollow trench with your hands.
Exit some attendants.
And you others, set up the water cauldron on its tall tripod over the surrounding fire to ready the ritual and holy washing.
Exit some other attendants.
Let one troop of men fetch from the hut the fine armor which he wore under his shield.
Exit more attendants. TEUCER turns to Eurystheus.
And you, son, with such strength as you have, lovingly lay your hands on your father, and together with me lift his body. For still the black life force blows upward from the warm veins and vessels.
Eurystheus puts his hand on his father's corpse. After some time, he helps TEUCER raise Ajax's body.
Come one and all, whoever claims to be here as a friend, let him hurry, come quickly to toil for this man who is good in every respect. For there was no one of mortals ever better than Ajax when he was alive. This is what I say.
The third group of attendants returns with Ajax's body armor. The funeral procession now begins to form into a unified group.
In truth, men can understand many things once they've seen them, but before it comes into sight, no one is a prophet of the future and how he will fare.
Exit all by a side ramp. TEUCER carrying Ajax's corpse over his shoulders. There follows in solemn procession the chorus, Eurystheus and TECMESSA. The end.
Thanks,
Yay.
everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our actors. Thank you to our audience members who stuck around. Thank you to the audience members who will be joining us to watch the recording. Maybe what we could do is have Steve Esposito take some questions. If you guys want to email him, because it's getting late tonight and we have a lecture early in the morning, maybe if you guys can write down your questions and you can ask them at the beginning of lecture tomorrow or send him by email, that might be a good way to handle it. But in the meantime, another round of applause for our speakers, for our readers. Thank you so much for coming out tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Sophie.
Now can I show them
Thanks,
Bye, everyone.
Sophie. Thanks,
Thank you.
Sophie.
Thank you, Sophie. Thanks,
Oi
everyone.
moi, oi moi.